Welcome to the Picky Girl Travels podcast, the show for Black women who want more out of life and to live it as they see fit. The message here is all about defying convention, embracing adventure, and regretting absolutely nothing. I'm your host, Adalia of PickyGirlTravelsTheWorld.com. And y'all are in for a treat today with my guest. One of the important values of this podcast, of like the way I go through life, is taking time to rest. I think rejecting kind of what society, especially the capitalist society that we have in the US, has said, like, you're always supposed to hustle, you're always supposed to be striving and climbing and all of that. And taking time out to rest is revolutionary, which is one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, Miss Lady, because you are on a sabbatical right now. And that if someone had mentioned that as a possibility to me a few years ago, not a few years ago, let's say 10 years ago, that it would have been a non-starter. There's no way I could have wrapped my head around that. So without further ado, let me introduce my guest today, Nicole, who is currently talking to us, visiting us from Egypt, as part of her sabbatical. You're an expat and mindset coach who is out taking time off and resting and doing whatever the hell she wants. So I'm excited to talk about this with you. I saw you like first came into my realm of knowledge. I saw the interview you did with Rashida Dow on her YouTube channel about living your best expat life. I started to Google and go down a few rabbit holes a little bit and discovered you are like an OG expat. You've been abroad since 2014?
Correct. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And where did you live?
I started my expat journey in the UAE. I lived there for 5 years.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. And if I'm not mistaken, you also lived in China for a bit?
Yes. And then after the UAE, I moved to Shanghai and I was there for about 2.5 years.
And I will take a moment to tell the audience now that her experience in China was far more positive than mine. You look like you were having fun. You were having a great time. That is not how I would describe my time in China, but that's not what we're here to talk about.
Yeah.
So, you lived abroad. Part of like one of the perks we get for living outside the United States is that it's a whole lot easier to travel. I saw in the Travel Noir feature about you that by 2019, you had already traveled to 25 countries. So I'm kind of left with the question of, you were already traveling. You were already what appears to the outsider to be living a really awesome life. Why did you decide to take a sabbatical? Because I believe your sabbatical started at the end of 2021.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very brand new. It's so funny because I moved to Shanghai, and as to your point, I did have a really positive experience, but I'm sure you probably would agree with me that if you were a teacher in China, that your work hours are much longer than even, let's say, the UAE in the States. I'm talking about getting out at 4:30. And I know for people that work like regular, like other jobs, like 4:00 seems like early, but if you're a teacher and you're accustomed to getting out at like 2:30, or even 3, like 4:30 just seems like a whole extra day that you don't want. And though I loved my school, I can't say I loved my school. It was decent, right? I liked my experience being there, but while I was there, I was tapping into essentially what I'm transitioning into, which was like coaching, and I was doing events and that sort of a thing. And the thing that I really missed about being in the UAE was more of a work-life balance. I felt like when I was in China, it was kind of like either or, it's like you get home, you get out at 4:30, then you're choosing whether or not you're going to go and socialize or maybe try to make contacts, or if I'm going to go to the gym. Or, you know what I mean? Like I found myself that I was always trying to have to swap too many things out. And it just felt like, the task of being a teacher, it requires so much energy anyway. And just me even trying to start something while teaching, I realized that it was just so taxing for me. It felt hard. Like in my mind, I was like, oh, I'll just do 2 hours when I come from work and work on this. And I'm going to just 2 hours. And I just realized that it wasn't sustainable. It didn't feel like I can do 2 things at the same time. And even though I can say that I'm like happy with some of the sessions and the things that I did while I was in China, it just didn't feel like long-term there was any way that I was going to be able to build something while working there, just because of like the schedule, and how it is in China. Like even when there's a day off, you're making it up. So that might mean
holidays don't really exist.
Yeah, they're not really real. And then because I always say I was in an international-ish school. So it's not like I had all the holidays. Like, yes, I have the whole month off, but then it might be like weeks upon weeks before I'm off again. So I had to really think to myself, if this is something that I want to pursue, is this sustainable in China? And then, as you know, and like for anyone watching, China is not a place where you can just be like, oh, I'm going to stay here for an extra month. Like with the visa and all of that, you can't just be like, I'm just going to stay here for 30 days or 2 months just because of everything, and also with COVID, you throw that into the mix. And the only option that I had was to start a business immediately. And I didn't want to like make fear be my motivation. Like I'm going to start a business real quickly. And I will say that I did start something with an ex-boyfriend. The reason why I say ex, because on Sheeta's podcast, or maybe somebody, I had a boyfriend, but we broke up. And then, like common sense came to me. And I'm like, I don't want to start something with someone and I don't know how it's going to end, just like a stay in a country. Like, I don't think it was worth it. Like, you know what I mean? I was putting too much out there to risk just to say that I want to stay in China. So I know I get this all the time. People are like, well, you love China. Like, I'm so surprised you left. And I'm like, I did, but it just wasn't going to help me to move forward with the things that I wanted. And, because of COVID as well, like we couldn't technically leave. Leaving also meant not knowing whether or not you'd be let in. And like, certain schools, even my own, like, they were very selective on who they would decide they were going to like let in and who not. And I didn't want to risk it, so there were just so many things that I had to kind of sit and reflect and think to myself, like, yeah, I know you like China, and I know you love your connections, I know you love your community, but what do I actually want? And to be honest, like watching you, watching Sheeta, watching Stephanie, it just made it even more real. I was like, okay, I'm watching these ladies talk about it. Like, let me take the leap. So my long-winded, explanation as to why and how.
Well, let me commend you for being, I don't know what the word is, being intuitive enough or recognizing that you didn't want to deal with the struggle of I'm working full time and I'm trying to build this new thing, that you recognize that the work-life balance wasn't there, that was going to allow you to build the thing you're trying to build in the way that you wanted to. And you were like, okay, I need to find an alternative. I feel like in the US, it is like, no, girl, you just got to hustle harder, grind harder. So I want to commend you, one, for recognizing that. So that's how you arrived at the decision that, okay, I need to take some time off so that I can focus on developing what my next chapter is going to be like. What was the reaction like when you told people, hey, I'm going to take this big chunk of time off?
People were thinking I was crazy. I mean, like my friends, people around me, they're like, Nicole, I can't even mess with you because you be like at A and then you just be like a Z. Like you said you were working some things out. So it was very unexpected. I mean, I didn't tell all my close friends that I was watching all these YouTube videos and getting inspired as well. Of course, fear for me because it's the pandemic. It's like, wait, you know, how are you going to survive? Like, who's trying to leave and travel in the midst of all of this? I did get some of that, but then, you know, people that really know me, you know, when I'm committed and, you know, as you said, like tapping into my intuition and really just thinking about what is it that I'm here to gain? And I think when you see what you're here to gain, then it's not to say you don't have fear or all these things, but you're motivated more by that than just like everything that can go wrong, you know? So that, and then my mom, you know, she's like, most people are not supposed to be taking, you know, I come from a Caribbean household, like come from Jamaican parents where, you know, and I understand like what it was to leave Jamaica to come to the States, but, you know, like my mom was not excited about this. She's like, and my mom was like, you are in the prime of your life. This is when you should be maximizing so you have stuff for your pension. Like, she was like, why are you taking time off now? So I definitely was met with that. And of course, like other people, whether I see it positive or negative, but it was just like, oh, so what are you going to do? And then for me, I started finding like I was trying to over explain because, you know, like it's a conversation that you need to like have like these deep like answers to every decision you make. And I realized like, I guess that's how abnormal it is, especially for people like us to like take a break. And even I still struggle with it sometimes. Like I find that like I realize that people that look like me, people who are maybe, you know, youthful, what have you, just don't take breaks. And I think there's also an idea that just because you were enjoying something, that means you can't necessarily leave it. So, you know, like everyone knows, oh, you love China so much. And I'm like, yeah, I loved it. You know, I had a good experience, but there are other things that I'm working through and what I wanted to work on. So I do think I'm still even trying to sit in with that because even I sometimes I'm like, wait, I actually made this decision. Like, I'm like really like not getting up and going to work. Like, wait, like I'm
Well,
still okay. Like,
I mean, think about it. Okay. And especially you coming from a Caribbean background, everything in our life is all geared up to this. It's all about getting a job, having a job. You go to school, you make good grades so you can get into the right college so that you can get a good job. And then you're supposed to work that job for 30 years and get a pension or what have you. So our, and I say our as in US American culture, is built on this idea that we have to work, we should want to work, we are defined by our work. If you think about what is the Protestant work ethic and the whole like pull yourself up by your bootstraps, like you don't, I've said it here before and I'll say it again, in American culture, you don't have value when you don't work. So it's expected that if you've grown up in that, of course, you're, like I said, what you're doing is revolutionary. And it is you're going to have those moments where you struggle with that. And you're like, should I be doing this? Is this right? Like, that's a hard thing to unlearn or to separate yourself from.
that I totally agree with you. And I think even I'm still unlearning it. I think that's why, you know, tribe is so important, but also tribe are people who are doing similar things because you'll also feel kind of insane. Like you'll feel a little crazy. You feel a little misunderstood. I mean, you feel these things anyway when you become an expat anyway, but now you add that to it. It's like, wait, you were expat, you okay, you love the country, but now you're like, take it, like, I just don't get you, Nicole. Like, what's going on? So, and I think, like, as you said, like having conversations like this, the YouTube channels, it really helps me to help me to remind myself that I'm not strange and that like it's okay to take a break. Even if I didn't want to work on something, that it would be totally fine if I just wanted to just do a check-in. You know, when you work in China, like even that late days or, you know, it's darker early, all of that, like it can be kind of like sad and depressing. You're not gonna be thinking about like your life goals. You're just trying to make it to like Chinese New Year, you know? So yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm still processing it. And being very proud of myself that I did it, even while processing it. Because I think sometimes when you make a decision that every moment is going to feel so exciting, even when it is something that's amazing. But I think sometimes because you have all those other things you're carrying, I'm just learning to just be appreciative of all of it, like understanding that it's okay to feel a little odd and for people maybe not to get it and to sleep and the rest. I'm now getting at that place of like understanding that. But beginning, no, I was definitely judging myself. Like, did I think this through?
And I appreciate your candor with that, because, you know, people, it's very easy to see the pictures people post online and forget that that is not like every day. That's not every moment of their day, that there are these times when you may question things, or you might not feel like you've made 100% the best choice. So I appreciate you being candid about that. Okay, so we talked about why you are taking a sabbatical, why you're on sabbatical, and how you arrived at that, and the reaction that your choice received. Now, did you plan out like how long you wanted to take off, where you wanted to go, what you wanted to do, or you just kind of running on vibes?
I'm kind of running on vibes. Like, you guys are listening. I mean, if you know me, I feel like I'm like 80% more intuition and then 20% plan. It's partly why I call myself the soulful expat, because I think a lot of things are soul based. I do believe that, the idea that when you make a decision, like the universe just conspires. And the reason why I say that, of course, but mama ain't raised no fool either. Like, I had a Jamaican mama, like, of course I'm going to make sure I'm financially responsible. So before leaving, like, I tutored more, I saved more. And I mean, the beauty of China is that you can save aggressively, more so than like maybe somewhere else. I did save. I looked up places that were affordable, but on the flip side, like when I'm telling you about the whole soul thing, is that I was having a conversation with my friend. I was like, yes, I'm taking some time off.
Okay.
And like, I'm doing all this. She was like, oh, come to Egypt. She goes, I'll be here for like a couple of months. So then I was like, say less. Like, this is like the universe working out. Like, what? Like, this is like a blessing. Like, who, and then of course it made me sound even crazier to my family, because it's like Egypt is random, like who, like, I've received that so much, and it felt like a sign. Like, like, wow, I made a decision and I didn't have to work out too much. Of course I had a backup plan of what I was going to do, and I am going to eventually leave, Egypt. I'm not here for the entire year, but I did think about what places could I afford, what places that I actually like, because I didn't want to just go somewhere that was cheap. Like, I wanted to be in a place where I could see brown people, or people who are, in a cafe. I thought about places that, didn't seem too crazy with COVID in terms of like procedures, if I'm going to be like locked in all the time. And I just kind of just meditated on it, to be honest. Like, I really tried to sit with myself with it and just think about, I was like, spirit, just kind of guide me so that I know what would be best. What is it that I want to experience? What is it that I want to feel? What is it? And I realized that I didn't want to be in places where I knew someone, that I was really honest about. Like, I was like, I wanted to go to a place where if I need to connect with someone, that I know that I can physically like see them, not like I have to depend on Zoom. So that's why coming here was pretty easy, and either other places will be. So I just really checked in on like what my needs were. So that's been helpful. So yeah, so to answer your question, it's been like saving, of course, watching the YouTube videos to see like what was most important. Because of my experience being an expat, I kind of use some of that experience and thinking about like, what do I value? What's really important? And really just that. I would say strong Wi-Fi, but you can see freaking internet here in Egypt.
Hey, but
janky,
that's
yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I know that one of the considerations, some people are considering taking off time, but they may not be in a position where they can not work. And so they're very concerned about the availability of dependable Wi-Fi and all of that. And, sometimes you can get it, sometimes you can't. And you're in Egypt now, but this was not the first stop on your sabbatical. Yeah. I believe you spent some time in Peru, right?
Yes. Yes, I spent some time in Peru. I did my yoga certification and meditation because, like I'm all about wellness and I really wanted to connect with myself. So I spent a month and a half there. It was my first time actually in South America. Um, and yeah, like even just the freedom to do that, like once I made the decision to take the time off, then it was like I started thinking about like what are all the things I'd like to do that I couldn't really do if I was teaching. And that was like the first thing. And they had like a scholarship program and I got a partial scholarship. So that was beautiful. Like I was like, who do I think I am? Like I'm done to go to Peru and do yoga. Like what? I'm just so thankful. But yeah, so that was like the first thing I did. Like I went to New York, then I went to Jamaica for my birthday, which was sweet. And then I went to Peru. There's something powerful when you make a decision, how things literally just kind of open up, like really tapping into that. So Peru was amazing, really allowed me to tap back into nature, hiking and all of that, peace, a lot of reflecting. And that's, just something I'm also equally passionate about, just kind of like wellness and taking care of myself and yoga and all of that. So yeah, thank you for reminding me. I almost forgot. Like,
well, no, because like I was looking at your
crazy.
IG and I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, and I very much identify with the notion of like, what's the thing that I've always wanted to do, but I never could because I was working. I kind of had an accidental sabbatical, and like finding yourself in that position of like, well, what is it I want to do? Like, what are those things I dreamed about that I never really could make work when I had a regular job? So no, I thought it was very cool. And I wanted to ask you a few questions about that. Like, you got certified. So I know part of the next stage that you're moving into, there's a big focus on wellness and helping women move abroad mindfully and that sort of thing. So is the yoga piece part of that? Or is that just, like, I really like yoga?
Want to teach. I mean, I personally wanted to strengthen my own practice. And I think because, people of color, especially Black folks, many of us feel that like yoga is not for us and like you have to be flexible and all of these things. So I really wanted to know what are ways that I could, add it to a program or just even if it's small tidbits. I mean, just even something simple like our breathing. Like our breathing lets us know that we're alive. And yet I learned how we breathe incorrectly. Like we're supposed to take deep breaths. When you're feeling stressed, like if you understood how changing the way that you could actually help you to handle stress. And, like most people think that expats, like we all live like this amazing life and like we never experience like pain and all of these things. And I just figured like having these tools would be so helpful for us as just a collective, like knowing that you don't have to do all the asanas. Like yoga just means union. Yoga is actually not even the pose itself. That's an asana. So there were like all these other tidbits of things that I would love to add because I think that that's what's given me so much peace being abroad. Like some of my practices, like, I mean, I posted, probably people see, I post like what my meditation was for the day, affirmations, it's been my personal growth, my personal development, my mindset. Those are the things that's really, and being intentional as well. Those are the things that's allowed me to have peace. And to this point in my life, now I literally feel like I can live anywhere. Like if I really put my mind to it, I feel like I have enough tools that I can confidently say I live everywhere. Now, would I live everywhere? No, but I just mean like I know how to adapt. Like I know what things I need in a country. I miss cycling like I did in Shanghai. So now I go to the gym here and I'm learning to walk, like not learning to walk, but like walking outside. So, every place is not going to have what you need, but I think like when you know what you need, you know how to kind of process, like pain and all these things. And I think it it adds more value to your expat experience. I really feel that it just allows you to push through more.
I mean, I think it adds something like that adds value, not just to the expat experience, but just life in general. Like, like I'm struggling with the right words, but hearing you talk about, the intentionality and being basically what I heard from you is you taking that time and focusing on those things helped equip you in such a way that there's really not anything you can't do at this point.
Yes, it really does. It adds a lot of, and that's what adds the ease. That's the part that makes my mind feels free. Like, I know, like, I was so excited when I paid off my debts when I was in the UAE, which was my first reason why I moved there. But even when I did that, I had so many other things lingering in my life. And I initially thought that was going to be my freedom. And I just felt like it was part of it. But once I started to really work on my mind and find peace and ease, that is when, like, I feel like I'm bulletproof many times. And even when things aren't going well, I'm okay with feeling it. Like, I don't have to live there. Like, I just know that it's just like I'm in a process, and like, but it's allowed me to really navigate that space. And I think when people used to ask me, like, they were just thinking that my life is perfect. I'm like, nah, it's just like the way that I'm learning how to move with it. Like, I roll with the punches, I roll with the pain, I roll with the pleasure. And that's what actually led me into wanting to coach and just really helping people with tools, because I do think that sometimes I'm team leave America as well, but I do think that sometimes people hear that message, and then when they get to wherever they're going, then like there's all these other things that they face, just like myself. And like, I didn't consider those things. Like I wasn't thinking about like making friends when I was going to move abroad. Like, I didn't even think about that. I didn't think about dating and like whether or not I wanted to date. I didn't think about like, what is it that I actually like? What gives joy to my life? I was just so focused on, I'm just going to pay off my money. I know UAE is giving me like, tax-free, and I'm going to pay off these debts, but there were all these other components of my life that I didn't consider. So initially, first I was blaming it really on the country and like all these other things. And I was like, I had to check myself. Like, what are you doing for these areas of your life? So that's really like where I come in. Like, I want to help women who, when they arrive in the country, that they have tools. And then when I say only like practical tools, but like affirmations, like reframing, because, like I've heard it like on several podcasts, and I've always said this, like, wherever you go, you still bring yourself. Like, life doesn't magically just get better because you're in a new country. If anything, everything that you were just becomes like, I feel like it's on a magnifying glass, and like you really get to see everything that you probably never decided to navigate or like take apart or look at. And now you're like, oh snap, like I'm a mess. Like, like maybe I need to check this thing, and I feel like for me, that was my process. I learned so much about myself, and I learned about things I needed. And then I learned about, this is not America. So some things are going to be a little, not going to make sense to me. And how do I respond to that? Like, I can't, in the UAE, you're not going to go to a place, or even in China, you're not going to go someplace and curse out. You're going to probably be kicked out the country. Like, these things are just not acceptable. Or friendships, in most Caribbean households, like you're taught, like, you're not supposed to have too many friends, and you're not supposed to trust people. And I mean, it's well-meaning,
Yes.
but
yes,
even if
it comes from a place.
you're tight with your, yeah, it comes from, I know it comes from a very good place, but the fact remains, regardless of how tight you are at your family, you're going to need people where you are. You're going to need community. And some of us, myself included, like most of the friendships we had, or because we went to the same college, like it wasn't a process. You didn't have to find them. So now, like, how do you do that? And like for me in the UAE, like I'm not part of a sorority. So I did feel a little excluded because like all these women were in sororities and they could naturally just connect with other people. Like, okay, you a Delta, you know, and I didn't feel that way at first. So it was just like, how do I actually become a friend? Like, do I feel weird like asking someone to like hang? Like it was, you just feel like a baby again. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's what I like about your coaching practice, is because here's the thing, like there are many of us that help people make that move, but it's about finding somebody that's really going to address what your needs are and what your gaps are, and all the things that you were saying about like, okay, once you get there, how do you adapt? How do you make sure, you know, you're doing this and you're still maintaining your wellness? That's one of the things I'm so excited about what you're going to do as you wrap up your time off, because I think that particular niche is very, very needed. Because if, like you said, wherever you go, you bring yourself with you. If you weren't a fully whole person before you left, you still got to address that stuff in this new place. And it might even become a bigger issue because now you don't have friends and family and those responsibilities to distract you. So I think this new direction you're taking, I think like you're the perfect person for this. Very much when when I think about you, you are like, you know, Zen. And when I saw that you were like, oh, I do expat coaching, but like, you know, with a wellness slant to it as well as mindset, I was like, yeah, she's the perfect person to do that.
Because I don't want people to leave a perfect opportunity because, you know, even just beyond wellness, I could see how we can, you know, I know everyone's talking about generational wealth in the Black community, but like, this is like generational wealth. This is like generational peace. This is like generational mindset shifts. Like us moving abroad and being able to do the same things we did in like our native country and still being able to live comfortably, even without a side hustle for most of us, you know, especially talking about if you have the privilege of, let's say, a Canadian American, you know, UK passport, in that, you know, we do have privilege in a sense of job, you know, people want us, right? And speaking specifically, I know from the education standpoint, but I'm sure for other careers, but there's so much that can happen. But I know that if you have like a really bad experience abroad and you just run back home, right? Sometimes I feel like you can kind of, if we were to work on this in a community style, you know, and having that support, I do think we can transcend so much hurt, so much, you know, like the things that you know, would pretty much you, Stephanie, and Sheeta speak about consistently on your platforms, you know, just this idea of peace and ease and financial abundance and like doing things your own way. But I think that like having that also support would be helpful, just so that people could understand that it's totally normal to feel all the things that you feel when you go abroad too. Like you're gonna feel lonely, you're gonna question your decision, you're gonna feel a lot of things. And I think that parents, at least for me, I know that whenever I would feel hardship, like the quickest thing what most people would say is like, okay, come back home. And it's like, no, but I don't want to come back home per se. I'm just like I'm having a funky moment, or you know, so I just think it's so important, so important. And especially now with COVID, with all these things happening.
Do you, because I'm sitting here thinking, the kind of services that you provide, I'm thinking not just folks who are leaving the US need those. Do you coach women on mindfulness? Let's say, you know, like I'm a woman and I don't mind living in the US, or my life is such that that's like moving abroad really in for me. Would you be somebody who could help me kind of work on my inner peace and getting in touch with, my intuition and that sort of thing.
Right now, my focus is primarily expats, but of course, if someone signed up, I wouldn't turn them away. And the reason why my focus is expats, number one, I've been an expat going on 8 years. Two, I know there's so many women like moving abroad at like record rates. So I think, working with those women right now to keep them in their countries and making sure they have the tools so they can continue like thriving wherever they go. That's like my main like jam right now. And just because like I'm in the thick of it, like I am an expat, I understand what it's like.
You don't have to apologize for it. I'm just okay. Asking the question that somebody listening to this may have. True, but no, ma'am, you don't have to apologize for serving who you serve. So how much more of your sabbatical time is there?
So I have, so we are in February. So I'll be in sabbatical until I think July or August. That's the goal. I said that I would take a year off. And the reason why I said a year off is because I still have other financial goals that I want for myself. But I always say I live in, optimistic possibilities. So who knows, maybe I'm getting so many coaching clients and maybe I'll just end up like, like you and Sheeta and everyone else. But right now, in this exact moment, I said I would give myself a year and then set a goal for when I can just totally do the coaching full time. I've been pretty much a student to the game right now, just finished a course. So yeah, that's I'm giving myself a year. That's the finance.
All right. I'm curious. This is just me being nosy. What's a typical day like on your sabbatical?
Oh my gosh. It's so funny. My friend just asked me that yesterday. So I started going to the gym here in Egypt because, I'm team wellness. So I did sign up for a gym. I go to the gym 3 times a week. I wake up in the morning and I have a very long wellness practice or morning practice, as you will. Like I meditate. I said that also on my sabbatical, I wanted to, read more. I feel like I've become so consumed with YouTube and watching YouTube videos and interviews and my love for reading. So I'm on book number 3 right now. So I wake up in the morning and I read, journaling, basically like writing what I want my life to look like. I think the time when you're not distracted, you start thinking about what you like. And one thing I can say about being on sabbatical is I really do like going to the gym in the middle of the day, like something as simple as that, like where it's not busy. So I've been using the time to think about what is it that I really want for my life. It's kind of like I've had this question before and then I made it happen. So now I'm in this new stage, like what do I really want my life to look like? Where do I really want to live? I am in the stage where I'm feeling like I want to be more settled. Like Portugal keeps coming up for me. I do want to be in a place where people can come and visit me per se, and they can be in my house. So right now I'm just in that stage. So pretty much my morning practices, gym. I've been meeting people. So I've been going out like around here in Cairo. Go on dates as well. I've been doing that. I've been on the apps because I'm trying to manifest a bae in 2022. Yeah. Trying to manifest him. I don't know where he at, but maybe he's watching. Hit me in the DMs. So it's really just like, it's funny because today I decided that I to restructure my day a little bit, but yeah, I'm going to restructure my day. I'm going to go to the earlier because I realized that I enjoy working when it's daytime, like when the sun is bright. Like I love to go to a cafe shop. I just feel more inspired. But yeah, so it's kind of a mix of like touring Cairo or touring Egypt, reading, going to the gym and just connecting.
That sounds awesome. I hear you. That sounds awesome. I think that's kind of the beauty of taking a sabbatical and taking a career break is you give yourself space to have that time to really think about, what do I want to do? Because in a regular life where you're working your job and you're doing all those things, you rarely have time to just dedicate time and space to thinking about what you want and being intentional, because life is just too hectic for that. And that you're like, okay, I want to restructure my day. I figured out that I prefer to do this at this time of day and this at this other time of day. Like, to me, that is the beauty of taking time to rest, is that you can really get in tune with who you are, how you want to live. That's one thing we're all about on this podcast, is living life on your terms, whatever that happens to look like. While I, as you mentioned, am like team do the least, live with ease, all that, I know that there are women out there who like, they really vibe off of the striving and the adrenaline and all of that. And if that's what you want, that's fabulous. But for me, I'm not about that life. And so it's been a journey getting to that place where I could fully embrace that. So that's what I think is so powerful about this time that you're giving yourself.
Yeah. And one thing I'd add to that too is that even when you ask yourself these questions, you may find that you'll do them maybe every 5 years, every 3 years. Like, as you get older, as you have more experience, as you explore different places, you'll notice that you'll need to check in with yourself. And I feel like I know what's different about me is like, now I know I want to feel more settled in like a certain place, and I want to have like a zip code, and like, I can't say I felt like that like a year or two ago, and the idea of wanting to be my own boss and just doing my own thing. So I think it's being, for anyone that's listening, just the idea of like checking in with yourself and thinking about what you want and what is it that you desire, what do you want to feel, what do you want to experience, and let that be your driving force for your decision, not just one thing, So it's such a good space to be in, I mean, I'm so thankful. I mean, I'm thankful I made the decision, but I'm also thankful that there were YouTube channels with women, you and Sheeta and Stephanie, who are saying that like, this is something that we can do, because you don't even realize how impactful it is. Like, you hear someone saying to do something, because you could think something, but sometimes you might need to see the example. You might need to see that it's actually working out. And it really has been helpful for me to make this decision, because I would have never considered this.
And that is why I wanted to have you on to talk about your sabbatical, because just like you said, you saw Rashida, who took a career break. You saw Stephanie, who took a grown-up gap year. And it's like, hey, those are women like me. If they can do it, maybe my idea isn't so crazy. Anything is possible for me. So no, that's exactly why you're here today, because I'm hoping that somebody listening to this or somebody watching this can take inspiration from what you are doing and, get themselves on the path to live their best life.
Saying for women who see me and they're thinking that I'm always living my best life, is really because of being intentional with things that I do. I'm big on joy and ease as well. Like, joy and ease, we need to normalize just joy, and it doesn't have to be connected to anything. Like, just being joyful, get gratitude. So if you're like feeling overwhelmed with your experience abroad and you want to add more intention and more joy and ease, then definitely, if you go to my IG account, you will see I have a link tree, and you can book a consultation with me. I love
it, because this is where I was going anyway. I was just about to ask. So if somebody wants to connect with you, they want to book a session with you, how do they do that?
Okay, so go to the Soulful Expat, and maybe I'll send the link also to Adalia. She'll have the link tree and you just book an appointment with me. And then we will create a plan for you so that you could have more joy, ease, and intention in your time abroad. In my consultation, we all just talk about it's like goals and what is it that you're looking for? What are some of the gaps? And when I say gaps, like in terms of like your wellness, like relational wellness and financial wellness. So pretty much talking about that so that we can have more intention and ease in your time during your time abroad.
Yes. So in the description of the podcast, I will put a direct link. But if you're hearing this, you can go to Nicole's Instagram. She is the Soulful Expat on Instagram, and the link is in her bio there as well. Well, thank you for giving me a piece of your evening all the way over there in Cairo, Egypt. I am so appreciative of you being on the show today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. I just want to remind you one more time about the importance of giving yourself space, taking a break. It is vitally important for you in order for you to live your life wholly and fully, but also because you deserve it. I think it helps to hear someone tell you, yes, you deserve a break. And I really do believe that resting is revolutionary, and we are on this channel, we are going on this podcast, we are really going to work at normalizing resting. So I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Nicole. Thank you again for the support that you've shown me and the support that you've shown the podcast. If you are watching this on YouTube, please like this video, share it with other women you think would find it useful. If you have not already subscribed, please do that. If you are listening to this on any of the podcasting platforms, thank you so much. If that platform has the ability for you to leave a review, that would be greatly appreciated, as reviews help the podcast become more visible. If by chance you can support the podcast financially, there's a link in the description to become a patron or to buy me a hot chocolate. Reach out if there is something specific that you would like us to talk about here on the podcast. There are links in the description where you can do that. And next time, y'all.